Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome to another MX vs. ATV Supercross Encore Career Mode gameplay video, the world's longest title ever. This is rounds 9 through 12 of the National Championship today. I have won every moto before this, leading into this, whatever you want to call it, and now I'm just trying to complete off the perfect season, I guess, in this series. Talked a little bit about trying to maybe finish up this career mode before the MX vs. ATV All Out game comes out. I don't think I'll quite get there, as the MX vs. ATV championships are going to take a little bit too long if I do them at these short video amounts, so maybe I'll throw a couple longer videos in there, or maybe I just won't even finish the career mode. I don't know. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and get as far as I can to kind of build hype, and we'll see where we go. But obviously the biggest news is tomorrow, if you're watching this video on Monday the 12th of February, is the release of Monster Energy Supercross the game. Obviously everybody's kind of been hanging out waiting for that to come around, and not as much, I feel at least, hype going around for MX vs. ATV All Out, which has also been posting a lot of stuff to get people hyped for it, but it's not really generating as much talk, I feel. Probably because Monster Energy Supercross the game is coming first. And really, I think in order to help All Out build hype, the only thing, or the best thing that they could hope for is that people don't generally enjoy the Monster Energy Supercross game, or they get tired of it quickly. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and of course we'll have videos on the channel this week. Probably right out on Tuesday we'll have a video at least, and then through the week I'll probably post a couple more of track building and stuff like that in the game. But yeah, talking about MX vs. ATV All Out and kind of where they're going and what's going on with them. Obviously the release is March 27th, so we're still a little bit of ways away, but I feel like they've recently kind of put out a couple new videos that show the game being pretty close to done from what I would expect. They posted one entire lap of a track apparently in game that's called Atlanta, but it's the old shoot, I'm forgetting the name of the track now. It's like Little Rock or can't even remember the name, but it was in Untamed. It was the second to last track on the list of Untamed Supercross tracks, and it's basically just a replica of that track. Not sure if that's gonna be a theme with that game, like are all the old tracks gonna be showing up again, or is it just that one that they decided to recreate and there's gonna be more custom tracks or what have you. No idea, just saw that they posted that one hot lap video on Atlanta. So if you want to see that, I would definitely recommend checking out their Facebook or Twitter page, because I've been getting that retweeted in my face several times over the last few days. So I've seen it over and over again, and don't necessarily feel like seeing it again. I'm indifferent about the gameplay. I think it looks pretty good, but I still don't think that they quite have the rider positioning and all that stuff right. Like, it looks like, first of all, everything's overscaled, which I've talked about, but it also seems like the rider is in the wrong position on the bike far too often, which as a regular gamer probably doesn't matter to many people, but to me, as like an actual guy that covers motocross and has raced it a lot in his life, I just look at that as a really lost cause of realism. Like, I don't know. You'll see what I mean when I play the game, because I think I could point that out pretty easily based on the video. But that's just one thing that I think is wrong with it. The rest of it looks pretty good. The whips don't look as free as some would lead you to believe. They seem pretty well, like, as long as you cork it and do it right, you can kind of get it to do what you want. But I feel like with reflex, you could really kind of work the bike around, do a couple things. You could do some oppo whips if you wanted. Ooh, you lag city. But so far, all I've really seen out of that game is these like cork whips, which is you get on top of the bike when you take off and like turn it down underneath of you, and then use that momentum of your body being on top of the bike to kind of lean the opposite direction of the whip to bring it back. I don't know. I call it a cork whip, but people probably call it something different. I haven't seen anything really glaringly different than that. They've done a couple, like, more or less, I guess you could call them twitch whips, which are like these flat whips that go about 90 degrees one direction or the other and then bring it back. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really seen anything super awesome on the whip side of things that leads me to believe you can actually do like a good normal flat whip or even a good oppo whip. But again, I'll have to play it and really see for myself. To me, whips isn't everything in the game. As long as the gameplay is good, I'll be happy. But just touching on a couple things that I've been seeing. Yeah, generally speaking, super excited for Monster Energy Supercross the game, super excited for MX's ATV All Out. Just in general, like the idea of playing multiple games. Like, I don't feel like I'm gonna stop playing. I may not play this as much, but I'll probably still be playing Reflex so long as there's tracks still being built in the game. And I'll definitely still be playing Sim and MX bikes and obviously the MXGP series, so it's just a gamut of games to select. Which is obviously fantastic for us motocross fans. Am I right, dudes? I'm very curious to see with All Out is that there's a few images that they've posted of national tracks, and so far they seem more like real pro national tracks than anything they've ever really done before. MX vs ATV has always been kind of along the lines of like, let's make really cool environments and then build a track through it and like get people psyched on that idea of it, like that you can make gnarly environments and ride through them and such like that. But I've always kind of wished that they would at least make a good 12 or so real life looking ish nationals where, you know, there's places for grandstands and hot dog vendors or whatever you want to call it, and actual banners all the way around the track. Like, you know, this is cool. This is like an island vibe feel, like you're riding in the hills of Hawaii or something for something like this track. But it totally, to me, doesn't look like a real national track. Like, yeah, maybe there's some things like this in Australia or New Zealand would be the closest thing I could imagine to having like an actual racetrack be built into this. Because in the United States, if land looked this beautiful, the Green Party would absolutely shoot it entirely down. So, yeah, I don't feel like I would not see something this cool looking, at least in the USA. So that's my point, is that like I wish they would have at least a legitimate looking like national championship series, and then they would have these cool custom tracks and other cool things mixed in as like a fun factor to the game. But then there's like the realism aspect where you have like the real nationals, the real motocross, and then you can do the other fun stuff on the side, just like you would want to do in real life. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much of a purist. Maybe they really should just keep going with these crazy, gnarly, awesome-looking environments and build tracks into them. I don't know. I am excited for All Out to have so much freeride options back into it, though. That's one thing that games I feel like kind of went away from for a while, is you couldn't freeride in much of anything. Like even this game, yeah, they have freeride, but I don't think you can actually freeride any of these national tracks, and they only use the old Alive freeride maps, which is like 2 or 3 of them. It's Devil's Playground or whatever it's called, and then there's the Quarry one, and then there's Squall Valley, which I downloaded as a DLC. I think that's it for freeride maps. But yeah, they're said to have brought in huge maps, huger than any motocross gaming map has ever existed. So that's going to be kind of cool. I really am curious to see if that means that there's going to be like enduros or something, which I think would be pretty rad. But obviously we haven't had anything enduro related come out of the MX vs ATV franchise since Untamed had Enduro Cross, but that's obviously not like enduro. And they had Omnicross and Waypoint Racing and Reflex, but that to me is not what I mean by enduro. You know, I mean like trail riding and riding through logs and getting stuck on hills and all the good fun stuff. So we'll see if that's the case. We'll see. They're gonna have UTVs. I don't know. There's a lot of good aspects to the game that I'm excited for. Realistic-wise, I think that remains to be seen on how good it can be physics-wise. What they're gonna do with like Supercross series and stuff like that. I like thinking back to Untamed, which was one of my favorite MX vs ATV games in the franchise. The national tracks, I feel like, were still kind of those crazy, different environment type national tracks. But at least Supercross, they had like a full 17-round Supercross series, if I remember correctly, or at least it was like 12 or 13 good rounds, and they were all, there were way too many lanes on the track, but the lanes and the rhythm sections and stuff, it was kind of realistic, so I liked it. I thought it was a really fun game. So if they go back to something like that, where there's a lot of different options for Supercross tracks and motocross tracks, and they give you many different game modes to play and stuff like that, then I'm all aboard. I kind of miss the old days when they'd even have game modes like tag or hockey or soccer or weird stuff like that, where you could do split screen or even play online with your friends and play games like that. Like I thought that stuff was always kind of fun, like a good little breakup of the action, do some weird quirky game like that. But we haven't had that since, shoot, 2003 or 4 was the last time I remember playing a game, like a mini game like that. I'm sure we'll hear more information about All Out 2 as it gets closer and closer to the date. Like we've seen a lot more stuff being released recently with Monster Energy Supercross, the game, where they detailed the track editor, they did a whole video on customization, and they've been doing these like really light gameplays. And we saw, or at least I saw, MX Vice, which is this really good company based out of England that does some good media work, got early access to the Monster Energy Supercross game, posted a video, and whoever was playing, which I would have to imagine is either Lewis Phillips or Sean Ogden, who are part of MX Vice, and they are both gamers in their own right. I've talked to both of them before, and they both came from Sim in some regards, so they're pretty good at video games, and they definitely make that game look way, way, way better than any of the Milestone developers who so far have made the game look pretty damn crappy because they just don't know how to play it, which is stupid because they're a developer and they should, but they are so bad at timing rhythm sections and everything. This new MX Vice video at least made the game look like you could get rhythm, which is a good sign. But up until this point, it was like, man, you could frame case everything and still have no problem. But now it looks like they've toned it down a little bit, and you actually do have to figure out how to carry your momentum by not casing jumps repeatedly. So that was encouraging from the MX Vice guys to see that. But yeah, in general, we've just seen so much content and stuff poured out of Monster Energy Supercross, the game, that for an average viewer like yourself, maybe listening to this video, or maybe you're going to watch the videos we post later this week, there's already kind of a lot of content out there for you to maybe go check out and decide for yourself if you want to buy it on the first day. Obviously, in our case, we really hope that you at least take a look or listen to the videos that we post and decide maybe from that whether you want to or not, or at least hear our thoughts and opinions out, because it helps us out. But either way, it's still kind of cool that there is a lot of media out there, because there is a lot of times that these games were so secretive about what was in them and what the career modes and what's going to be available and all this stuff. But now they've actually kind of reached out to their fans. That was such a big problem with MX vs ATV for so long, was that they would just post stuff like on their Facebook wall or whatever, and people would be like raging saying it's garbage or whatever, and nobody would respond. Now at least there's some guy, I don't know who it was that they hired, or if it's actually like Knudsen or what's that guy that's Ken George himself, like messaging people back on Facebook. I'd have to imagine it's probably some PR guy doing it, but at least they're responding to people. You know, if someone has a legitimate concern or a question, they definitely respond to it. And then they've even poked some jokes at like themselves saying like, oh yeah, you know, it was so funny how in Alive and Encore you could just clutch out of a corner no problem, right? Well, that's not going to be the case in this game, and then give a whole detailed reason why. So that's cool. Like, the communication aspect is definitely coming back with these games a little bit more, which to me is a positive sign, because at the very least somebody is reading and listening to most of your comments that you guys put out to them. Whereas before, I would say it was very questionable if anybody cared or listened, because they never ever said anything back. So you can take that for what it is. You could say it's either a bad thing that they are seeing our comments and aren't doing anything about what we like or don't like about the game, or maybe it's just too late in the development process and they can't do anything about it. That would be my opinion, but you know, maybe it's not yours. So, but like I said, communication is so crucial. You have to be able to touch base with the fans who are involved and want to play the game. And I've always said with these All Out or MXGP or Monster Energy Supercross the game, or, you know, going back to any game you can think before that, they are trying to reach a broader audience. So while us core moto fans would love to see realism and you know, like, add injuries to the game like it is, like you can have in Madden, or, you know, make the career mode super in depth and have to start out as a privateer and work your way up and stuff like that, which I think they could all do and still keep the average fan involved. But for their sake, the average fan is going to want to pick up the game and see Ken Roxon, or in MXGP's sake, someone's going to want to pick up the game and see Antonio Cairoli and Jeffrey Hurlings. Like, they're going to just want to be able to play as those characters and play on the tracks that those guys race on, to feel like they get an idea of what it's like. Or, you know, I'm just trying to think back to when I was a kid and I would pick up the games, and personally speaking, because I was a bigger fan, yes, I did want to see more of those career mode aspects and cool stuff like that, but I also felt like the game didn't have as much cool value to it if it didn't have good pro riders involved with it. That being said, I think Excitebike 64 was maybe one of the best games of my childhood, and it had nobody involved in it. You know, they made up characters to be a part of that game, and it was freaking awesome. But I can understand from an average standpoint why they would want to push so hard to have big names in the game, you know, real bikes, all that stuff like that, and maybe not spend as much time developing a realistic aspect to the game. So it's a catch-22, you know. Do you want them to pour tons of time and money into getting real people, you know, real 3D scan tracks like in Monster Energy Supercross, the game's case, work extra hard on details and stuff like that? Or do you want them to just throw everything out every year, start from scratch until they build it perfect, and then start on all that other stuff? They kind of land in the middle ground of that, because they want to be able to get as much of the athletes and sponsors and all that stuff in as they can. The more athletes, the more sponsors, all that stuff, the more money they'll probably make from the game. And because of that, I think their time put into making the game realistic and better probably takes a little bit of a hit. So yeah, it sucks, because it's really just a matter of they don't have the time, and they definitely don't have the resources, because they're a niche, you know, company following and covering a niche sport for a niche group of people who are going to pick up the game. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. If we had as many people watching us and caring about us as the NFL did, I can promise you the games would be a lot more realistic and better, because there would be a lot more personnel, man hours, development that went into those games to make it realistic. And Supercross numbers growing, motocross numbers growing, MXGP being as epic as it is right now is a huge help for someone who's making games about it, because all it does is mean that more fans will pick up the game, because more fans are watching it happen in real life. So it's an indirect, but in some ways very direct relationship to having it grow the game industry by growing itself from, you know, the series it is into a bigger one, getting on TV more often and in bigger spots. You complain about day races, but anytime you can get on Fox main channel, it's a huge victory over being on Fox Sports. Like, all that stuff matters, and it all can trickle down to the gaming side of it as well, because it gets more people, eyeballs on the screen, younger people who maybe their parents only watch channel 6 or 5 or whatever Fox is for some reason, and suddenly they're watching Supercross. So that'd be kind of a cool aspect for them, you know, to be able to see the game suddenly pop in front of their face and they've never seen it before. But anyway, Nationals now done in MX vs. ATV Supercross Encore. Monster Energy Supercross, the game, coming out tomorrow. Can't wait to talk to you guys about it, show it off, and all this fun stuff, and play it, and get all excited, and go through the career mode, and a whole 9 yards. But thank you guys for watching another video here on the channel. I'm Kellen here on Star Systems, and I'll see you guys in the next one.